Hello. Hi, good day, everyone, and welcome to the final episode of MCC Series, the Mastery of Journey to MCC 2025. Today marks a special milestone to our journey as we conclude this inspiring series proudly organized by ICF Bangkok Charter Chapter to honor and learn from those who have reached the highest level of coaching excellence. ICF Master Certified Coach MCCs. The series is designed to offer invaluable insights into what is truly meaning to coach at master level, featuring the wisdom and real-world experience of some of the most accomplished coaches in our global coaching communities. Whether you are on the path toward MCC or simply seeking to refine your coaching craft, today sessions promise to be profound learning experience. I am Coach Lian Sorat Amatyakul, a DEIB Director of ICF Bangkok, and I'm proud to be your your MC for today. A lot of MCC. And okay, at ICF Bangkok, we are dedicated to foster the growth of professional coaches in Thailand, championing coaching excellence and creating a thriving coaching community. This vision is passionately led by our chapter president, Coach Hongyok Chimphan, who is committed to advancing the coaching professional in alignment with ICF global standards. As of March 2, 2005, ICF Bangkok proudly has 235 members, all dedicated to elevate the coaching professional and making meaningful impact to society. Among them, we are celebrating 20 distinguished ICF members as an MCC, an exceptional achievement considered that globally out of 57,316 credential coaches across 141 ICF chapters in 99 countries, only 2,516 have attained MCC status. And yes, today for our grand finale, we are honored to welcome the esteemed Charlie Lang, MCC, who will be sharing his profound insight with us on a key to coaching mastery. Coaching with intuition, 3 ways to leverage intuition in coaching. Charlie has been a pioneer in executive coaching and corporate culture transformation in Asia over 20 years. He has contributed to the education of over 1,000 coaches since 2006. Charlie is prolific thought leader and author to the areas of coaching, leadership and coaching, having written over 250 articles as well as the 2 books, The Groupness Factors, The Coach Factors. Prior to becoming a coach, Charlie has a successful corporate career, including senior executive positions responsible for the Asia-Pacific region as well as global roles. Being a global citizen, Charlie has lived in 4 countries and 2 continents and traveled all over 60 countries in 5 continents. And in this session, we will get to discover what gets Charlie's up in the morning and dealing with particular challenging coaching cases. So everyone, please give us a warm welcome to Charlie Lang.
Thank you.
Honored to have you with us, Charlie.
Thank you very much.
Okay. And guiding us through this insightful session is our moderator, our very own Director of Membership of ICF Bangkok Charter Chapter, Coach Arne Blom. Great to have you with us. And before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to express our deep appreciation to incredible team working behind the scenes to bring this event to life. A heartfelt thanks to Coach Bet, Coach Tai, and Coach Mo Kwan, our volunteer supporters, and Coach Hongyok Chimphan, our president, who are backstage, who are behind the scene, ensuring everything runs smoothly. And last but not least, a huge thank to our ICF Bangkok committee who passion and committed to have made this entire series possible. Their effort affect our shared mission to elevate the coaching profession and creating meaningful learning to experience our communities. Okay, so without further ado, I will now pass the floor to Coach Arne.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much, Coach Lian, for this extensive introduction, and thank you, Coach Charlie, for taking the time to being with us and sharing your wisdom and your experience. I'd like to maybe share some very personal remarks on this because I guess you can count me as a young coach. It's a nice thing to say when you have gray hair, and talking about intuition is something, and coaching is something which is not so common, and I believe you're going to make the point, in what you're presenting, because we're so used to hearing about using frameworks and models and powerful questions and do this and don't do that and don't give any advice, because you're not coaching anymore. A lot of things that of course makes sense and makes coaches practice real coaching, but at the same time there's maybe more to coaching than just these things, and I trust you're going to enlighten us with your introduction and presentation today.
Yeah.
So thank you so much once again for bringing maybe a different perspective on what it is to be a coach and not only to do coaching. Thanks, Charlie, and the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Arne. Reminds me a bit of the saying, don't break the rules until you master the rules, right? Because as a masterful coach, sometimes you need to break the rules of coaching in order to achieve the best impact for your coachee. The only thing is we shouldn't make it too easy to ourselves, because breaking the rules is actually quite easy, right? To give advice, I guess everyone here knows how to do that. Just to use that as an example. And so it was mentioned that I was involved in the development of 1,000 coaches. And the way we usually always approach this is that in the beginning, we don't allow them at all to break any rules, even if it would be beneficial, because they don't need to practice that. They already know how to do that, right? But once they are becoming more and more proficient, then the question is, what does actually best serve my coachee in any given situation? And today I want to focus on one aspect that is probably not so much talked about. The ICF core competencies have a very light touch on that, on intuition. I guess the word shows up 2 times in the PCC markers. And I want to share a few stories as well as a few approaches, how all of you potentially can use intuition more in your coaching, again, for the best impact with your coachees. So I can share the screen, right? Is it visible?
Yes.
Okay, good. So what will I cover in these 35 minutes or so? What exactly is intuition? Intuition is one of those words, you ask 10 people, you get 7 different answers. And I just want to define it for us here today. And I'm not claiming my definition is the only correct one. It's just one. And when you hear me talk about intuition, I want to make sure you know what I'm talking about. Then I will introduce these 3 ways of how we can leverage intuition in coaching. And we'll also have one case study included in that on optimal decision making. So how do we actually use that in coaching? And finally, of course, you will get some time to ask some questions. Anything, any comment, any questions, I'm always curious to hear. Okay, let's get into it. What exactly is intuition? And people often use some different words for that, like gut feel, or like sixth sense, or like thinking without thinking. I quite like that one, actually. And so it seems a bit random, right? When you hear about that, it seems, can that be actually relied upon? Is this actually really useful? And let me make one thing clear right away. Intuition is not always right. Yeah, your intuition can mislead you. I could share with you a bunch of famous examples where people thought they had the right intuition and it went totally backwards. So intuition is not always right, but what I can do today is to help you identify or assess whether your intuition is likely to be right or not. Yeah. And for that, we need to understand better how intuition actually works. It's actually a fairly well-researched topic. University of Cologne already 20 plus years ago did quite some significant research on that. And so I will share a bit how this actually technically works. The second thing is, now, as I said, there are many different definitions of intuition. And the way I would like to define this here for our purpose today is that when we have an intuition, one way to know that it's an intuition is if we cannot immediately explain it. Yeah, if we can immediately explain it, it's probably not an intuition. It doesn't mean you can never explain it. It just means it takes more effort to figure out where this comes from or whether that's valid or whatever. But one of the hallmarks of an intuition is when you have it, you don't know really why you have it. Yeah, it's just there, right? And so let's look into how intuition works. So I draw the mind like an oval. And that's, of course, not a physical representation of the brain, but there are some connections with the brain. And if we look at our mind, we can kind of break it down into three parts. One is the conscious mind, actually four parts. The second one is our memory, then the subconscious mind, and the unconscious mind. Again, a lot of people use subconscious and unconscious interchangeably. I actually prefer to make a clear distinction between the two, because on a brain level, the unconscious mind is actually residing in the brainstem. Yeah, and it usually creates our reflexes. It keeps us alive. The main role of that is actually to keep us alive. The subconscious mind is really something that was conscious potentially at some point and maybe went into our memory, but left our memory and went into the subconscious mind. So it's still kind of there, but it's not so directly accessible anymore. So we have five senses: seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touching. And when we have any of those sensations, it leaves traces in our conscious mind if we process it consciously. And then typically, fragments of these traces will be put into our memory. The way the brain works is that it doesn't put the whole information set into our memory. A way to be efficient is to put only fragments into it. And so when we actually remember something, in fact, we are reconstructing something. And that's why our memory sometimes fails us, because we don't reconstruct accurately. Yeah. But that's not so important for our purpose today. What's more important is that then if we don't recall things, and most of the things we experience every day, we do not recall, right? And then they go into our subconscious mind. So they don't get lost. They are still there, but they are somewhere in the subconscious mind. And more than that, we also get inputs through our five organs that we don't even consciously process. I'm not sure where you are right now, but maybe you have a fan running like me, or maybe you have an aircon running like someone else, or maybe you hear the traffic outside, but you probably didn't notice any of those until I mentioned them, right? Does it mean you were not impacted by that? Actually, research, again, very clear, you will be impacted by that. It's known, for example, that people who live near a railway line have more heart problems than people who don't. Even though you will ask these people, they say, I actually don't even notice that the train is coming. Yeah, I'm so used to it. And yet it has an impact on them. Yeah, so it's not so passive as it seems. So what is intuition really is that to a certain topic, it connects some of those dots and gives us that hunch, that gut feel into our conscious mind, where we say something feels wrong here. Yeah, or I have the feeling that I missed something that I need to pack before I go on vacation, but I have no clue what it is. But I have that sense that something is missing. Yeah. And at least for me, every time I have that sense, soon later, I figure out what I was missing. And sometimes it's too late. Yeah. So intuition is really taking these subconscious elements related to the topic that you want to have an intuition about, bringing it back into our conscious mind, and therefore we can do something with it. Yeah, so that's kind of technically how this works. Okay. All right. Arne, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. Sorry, first of all, thank you so much for bringing this to light, because I think many of us will learn a lot of things when listening to this. And I just wanted to bring an anecdote. I forget things all the time.
Yeah. So
I have to have things at the right place, the same place every time. If not, I'm forgetting them. And sometimes I think I forget something and I haven't, but I think I still have forgotten them. Yeah. So your mind can really be tricking you in both ways. So, but thank you for this introduction. It brings a little bit, concrete structure on what intuition is. Thank you.
And this is kind of important in two ways. One of the things I noticed training coaches is many of the things we train them on are useful, obviously, for their coachees, but also useful for the coach, right? That's why people often say when they went through a significant coach training that it was transforming them, right? Because whatever we may talk about what might happen with the coachee, that could also happen to us. Yeah. Earlier today, I had a debrief on emotional intelligence assessment. And of course, my emotional intelligence also plays a role, not just my coachees. And you will see some of those approaches that I will share with you can happen on both sides. Can happen on the coachee's side or can happen on your side. And you will see that in a moment. One more thing, and this is really important, I find. You can actually, knowing now all this, what I just shared with you, you can actually anticipate or assess how likely your intuition is going to be right. It's not 100%, but for example, if you had a lot of exposure to a certain topic, chances that your intuition is right is much higher than if you had little exposure. Let's take an example. You have two candidates in the recruitment process, and both on a logical level and the way they showed up and all of that seem to be more or less equally good. But you can only hire one, right? And one good way of dealing with that is to listen to our intuition. What does my intuition say? Which one feels more right? Yeah. Now there's a little risk to that actually my intuition is being contaminated by my emotion. Maybe I like A better than B, and therefore I think my intuition tells me A is better than B. But actually, that's an emotional judgment, not an intuitive judgment, right? And the way to kind of filter out emotions is whenever you have a doubt that emotions could play into this, ask yourself, what do I actually feel right now? Yeah, what's my emotion around this? Because once you have clear awareness about the emotion, then we can better kind of filter it out and really try to get only to the intuition. However, if you had only very rarely exposure to hiring people, maybe as a manager only 3 times in 5 years you were involved in hiring someone, you might not want to rely on your intuition. Yeah, because the exposure is quite poor. Whereas in this case, maybe we can talk to HR director or someone like that and say, hey, can you see these two people? And what does your gut feel say? Yeah, because they probably have much more exposure and their intuition is probably much more reliable in this case. Yeah, all clear?
Thanks. Yeah, good clarification.
Yeah, so now let's look into how can we use this in coaching. And the 3 ways that I want to talk about is one is intuitive listening. The next one is intuitive decision making. And the third one is, can we actually trigger an intuition out of nothing, so to say? Yeah, because quite often intuitions come kind of without planning it. But sometimes you might want to have an intuition when you don't have one, right? And so the third way will be about that. So several years ago, we came up with a model. So I will first focus on intuitive listening, and then we will look into intuitive decision-making, and then how we can trigger intuition. So several years ago, we came up with the concept of the so-called 4 degrees of listening. And the first degree is what we would call casual listening. So which is casual, you don't need to be very present. You may get easily distracted. It's quite effortless, and misunderstandings could happen. Obviously, that's not acceptable for coaching. It's maybe acceptable for small talk before you start the coaching, but in an actual coaching session, that would not be good enough. Now, for beginning coaches, coaching beginners, let's say up to, say, ACC level, you probably get by if you are really good at listening to understand. Yeah, you need to be quite focused. You need to have a fairly good presence. You need to pay attention so that you actually understand. And you may use things like paraphrasing, summarizing, clarifying to make sure you understood what the coachee actually tried to say. And in this case, you don't get a lot of misunderstandings if you do this well. And that's kind of what we would expect for new coaches to master. Yeah. Then we get to the third degree, which ICF calls active listening, which is kind of the listening to understand. Plus, you need to be highly focused. You need to be really strong in your presence. And you not only pay attention to the words, you also pay attention to the voice and to the body language, facial expressions, things like that. And you also pay attention to the emotions. And it doesn't even have to be only the coachee. It may also be your own emotions. Yeah. And what you are often looking for is what we call congruence, or the lack of it. Congruence, you can say, is something like 2 things fit together. Yeah. And so an example of lack of congruence, and I will exaggerate a bit, is when I say, I'm so excited. Yeah. Or when I say, yeah, I'm so depressed. Right. That's, of course, very extreme. And in reality, that's not what happens. But you see the point. Sometimes our physical or vocal doesn't fit with the words 100%. And as a PCC level coach, you should pick up on such things. You should pick up on emotions and look for that congruence and call it out if you notice it. Yeah. So, for example, you could say something like, I noticed that at the end of the sentence, you said something quite serious. At the same time, you were smiling a bit. And I was just wondering what this is about. Yeah, that would be an example of active listening. Then the 4th degree is what we call intuitive listening, which is kind of all of the above. But now we need to be, and this sounds like a paradox, we need to be fully focused and detached. Yeah, we are here in Thailand, so there's a strong Buddhist culture. And in Zen Buddhism, they talk about non-attachment, right? But non-attachment is when people go to the desert or to the mountains or something like that to detach from everything. But that's not the end game. The end game is that we actually engage again. So we talk about being detached and engaged. Yeah, because when you are just somewhere detached in the middle of nowhere, you don't serve anyone, right? Maybe yourself, but not anyone else. So it requires a strong presence, and you need to pay attention to all of the above, plus your own intuition, or maybe the coachee's intuition. And it's to some degree often more sensing than hearing the conversation. I coach at the moment the CEO of a major pharmaceutical company in China, and she tells me a lot of very complex things. And to be honest, I often don't understand what she actually says. And my first degree is actually in mechanical engineering. And as an engineer, you like to understand everything, right? But I realized over the years, I don't need to understand anything. I need to sense what's really important. I need to sense where there may be something that she didn't think about, and bring that into the conversation. So, but that also requires that I don't try to understand everything, but have a certain degree of detachment. Only then I will be actually able to notice my intuition. So fourth degree listening is kind of what we really expect from an MCC, that they are able to master that to some degree. Again, it's not so clearly defined in the coaching competencies of ICF, but I still remember when I went through my MCC recordings with my mentor coach, he actually emphasized that a few times. Yeah.
Charlie, can I jump in with a short question?
Sure.
Does this mean that that kind of listening, or the fourth level of listening, intuitive listening, is it possible to overcome, at least partially, language barriers if you have that level of listening?
Good point. That coachee is actually a Chinese lady, and of course, as CEO, her English is pretty good, but it's far from perfect. And sometimes the way she says things is quite confusing, but it can help to sense what she really tries to bring across.
Right.
So yeah, I guess here in Thailand, that would be also quite beneficial. Yeah. Okay, especially for a Westerner and culture type person, or vice versa for that matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, now I want to quickly give one story where I used intuitive listening, and which in this case was actually a game changer. I could tell you a few more, but we don't have the time for that. But that one I found actually quite impressive. So what happened was I was coaching a relatively young banker in Hong Kong. She was 27, 28, something like that. And she got already a pretty good job in a major bank in Hong Kong. And the reason why she was looking for a coach is because she was considering a career change. And one of the main obstacles for her seemed to be her parents. Now, she wanted to make a career change, which is a little bit drastic, from banking to performing arts. Yeah, and so she said, well, if I even mention that to my parents, they will think I lost my mind. Yeah, because now I have a good job, I get good pay, I have a career in front of me and all that. And as artists, I guess we know the future will be quite uncertain, at least from a commercial point of view. I mean, there are some that make it really well, but they are a small percentage, right? And it's quite unpredictable. And yet she felt she didn't have passion for banking. She had passion for performing arts. And so we kept talking about how she could talk to her parents, what might be their main concerns, how could she address them, da, 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 da. At one point, I suddenly got an intuition, and my intuition told me the parents are not a major stumbling block. But I had zero evidence for that. Yeah, it's not that she said something between the lines and then I picked that up. That would not be intuition. That would be perceptive listening or active listening, right? But she never mentioned anything like that. It was just a hunch, a gut feel that came over me. And one thing I learned to do over the years is to just bring it in. Because even if it's wrong, what damage do you do? Maybe 2 minutes wasted time, not more than that. So I said to her, I don't know, you keep talking about your parents, but somehow I get the sense that there's something else blocking you. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's only the parents, but I just get the sense. What do you think? And then there was a long pause. And for all coaches here, you usually know a long pause is most of the time a good thing because that's where people really process something, right? And then she said, you're actually right. I realize now that, yes, the parents will not be happy if I do this, but there's actually something else that holds me back. And that is, I have some doubts whether I have the talent to succeed in performing arts. And the parents were a nice excuse not to face that, right? And you see, that completely shifted our conversation. Now we talked about the real thing, how she could assess that, how she could figure this out. And she even said at one point, you know what, I actually can deal with my parents. Yeah, it was just convenient to put them in front.
Mm.
Yeah. So that's just an example how intuitive listening can be sometimes a game changer. I'm a bit mindful of time, so I want to also briefly touch on the other two aspects of using intuition. And one of them is intuitive decision making. Now, some of you may be familiar or not with Harrison assessments. And Harrison assessments looks at so-called paradoxical behavioral traits. And one of those 12 paradoxes is what they call instinctive logic, which looks at how much do we use analysis to make decisions and how much we use intuition to make decisions. I can tell you probably 95% of all senior executives I've coached, because I pretty much always run this assessment, are very high at analytical and quite low at intuitive. Okay, and that's not really a surprise because that's how you move up, right? You're a very smart thinker, you come up with good solutions, and to some degree that makes you successful, and you move up and up and up. But what happens as you move up more and more is that when you get to top management level, decisions become more and more complex. The number of decisions to make increases. The time you have to make a decision gets shorter. And so with a purely analytical approach, most of the time or many times, it doesn't cut it. You know, using a purely logical approach is okay if you can get the facts, the data in a reasonable time with reasonable effort, and the data is conclusive. Okay, you don't need intuition in this case. But what if that's not the case? What if it takes too long? What if it's too complex? We can't get conclusive answers. What most leaders then do is they approximate based on the insufficient data. And that works sometimes, but it also quite often doesn't work because it's not conclusive. The better way would be to ask yourself as a leader, how much exposure did I have to this topic? And is my intuition likely to be accurate? And then to try to sense what seems to be the right decision here. Yeah, and that may take a few days or sometimes it comes immediately. And then you can still look for ways to post-justify your decision. Because especially if you're still reporting to someone, even if I'm the CEO, I can't go to the board and say, I think we need to invest $5 million into this new industry. And they say, so what's the rationale behind? Oh, I just had that gut feel that this is a good idea. Yeah, so obviously they would not accept that. So you will probably still need to look for some ways to justify that decision with more rational reasons. But it can shortcut the finding of the path. Yeah, to find then things that confirm what you want to do is usually a bit easier. So just to give a typical example, this is Terry. She's the regional CFO of a medical devices company. He's known to be a sharp thinker, very analytical, has a good grasp on all financial aspects of the business. Recently, he had a conversation with both the global CHRO and the CEO about the potential succession of the CEO. One of the topics that appear to hinder Terry to be fully considered is that the current CEO has doubts if Terry has the right gut feel for the business. It was agreed that he would be supported with a coach and on this and a couple of other topics. So how do you approach this? And what I found is really helpful is to let them first talk about their current approach. Let them talk about the benefits, because if you immediately come in with say, well, you should use more intuition, which as coaches we shouldn't do anyway, but let them figure out what is working, because what they are doing now is working at least sometimes, right? So it's not always wrong to just use analysis, but it's then to explore what would be different if you are CEO versus CFO. What do you think is the reason why the CEO believes that? And most of the time you will get to the point where they say, well, I don't trust my intuition. And then you will ask some questions about that, and they will share some stories where their intuition misled them. And so what I then do is quite often, and this is a bit breaking the rules of coaching, I do a bit of teaching actually. I would go back to this one. Hold on, sorry. This one, and I would actually explain them how intuition works. That's not coaching, I acknowledge that, but since they usually don't know how it works, I find it's very useful for them to do. And once they know it, they can better see why in their cases it didn't work, because probably they didn't have much exposure to it. And I often also give some examples of people like Warren Buffett, who uses intuition all the time when he makes his decisions. They also use a lot of analysis. It's not just purely intuition, but when they come to the final choices, what they invest in, it's usually intuition plays a role. Now, his exposure is unbelievably tremendous. He started in the 1960s and reads financial reports like others read a newspaper. So chances that his intuition gets it wrong is super low. Finally, the third one, and that's about generating an intuition. So what I learned several years ago is that you can actually make up an intuition out of nothing, really. What you essentially do is you do a guided meditation, and with a little practice, you can guide yourself. And the way this would work is I imagine that I walk on a path along the beach. It's nice weather. It's quite cool, but not cold. It's very pleasant. And then there's a path inside, and I follow this path. And then suddenly I see a tree. And then I look at this tree in as many details as possible. And I would do all this just in a 30 seconds visualization by myself. I don't even talk about it. I would say to my coachee, I would like to experiment with something. Are you open that we try something different? Yeah, and they usually would say yes. And then I would say, I need about 30 seconds. And then in those 30 seconds, I guide myself through that. And then I visualize that tree. And then I describe that tree to the coachee. And what's very important is that I let this tree appear in my mind, not try to design it. Yeah, really just let it appear. And then I describe the tree in as much detail as I can, and then ask the coachee, so what rings true for you, or what do you make out of this tree related to what you want to work on? It's sometimes very amazing. I can tell you the first time I heard about that, I thought, this is so much nonsense. And then I tried it out and I was blown away. And nowadays I know, of course, why this works is because I typically don't do that in my first coaching session. It's probably after a few sessions. And so I have had some exposure to my coachee, and my subconscious mind probably picked up a few things that my conscious mind is not aware of. And that's then materialized in that tree. And the coachee may actually see these things. I usually have no clue what that tree means. Yeah, but my coachee in most cases can make some very interesting, get some very interesting insights. So here you have it, my 3 ways of generating intuitions or of dealing with intuitions in coaching. And I guess time-wise, I'm just on time.
Fantastic, right on time. Thank you so much. At least from a personal point of view, this was more than I was expecting, so that was very, very interesting. Thank you, Charlie.
Thanks, Arne.
I think we'll, yes, because I have noted tons of things I wanted to speak with you about, but I think it's not the time and place to do so. So I'll be just brief and say thank you so much. Maybe just one thing. You said teaching is not coaching, and although that's true, of course, that teaching is not coaching, I think we are allowed to share knowledge if it's useful for the client, right?
Yeah.
At least that's my point of view, and something also others have shared with me. As long as we are clear on this and we maybe ask for permission.
Yeah.
But absolutely, and I'm I must. When you said about the tree visualization, it sounded nonsense. It does to me too, but I would be interested in trying it out. Maybe in a peer-to-peer coaching, maybe before.
Exactly. Yeah. And as I said, I first didn't think that's anything useful, but I tried it out and I was completely convinced right after. And I've seen it meanwhile many times people doing it, because in our advanced level 3 coach training, we actually go more in detail into all this. And so I can observe when people actually do it. It's very interesting.
Excellent. It reminds me a little bit about an exercise when I was coach. My coach asked me to draw something on a piece of paper, and it was about relationship. And I drew something and then did another drawing, etc. And something actually very meaningful came out of it. So and certainly also from the unconscious mind. So yeah, I think a lot of things make sense when you explain to us this way.
Yeah, and sometimes people ask, does it have to be a tree? And I say, no, not necessarily. It could be an animal, it could be something else, whatever resonates with you. I grew up on an apple farm, so I grew up with trees. So trees work for me very well. But yeah, anything that works for you is okay.
Okay, thank you. So just to wrap up, I think it was interesting to see this in a very short period of time tonight, this evolution from a very scientific explanation to something more, can I say, intuitive in terms of what intuition is,
or autistic.
Yeah, it's just so fantastic how much lies beneath the surface of us as human beings, and how much more we can uncover. Thank you so much again. I think I'll pass the mic to probably a Thai colleague that can make a summary, or do we have questions first?
There are a few questions in the chat, actually. Should
okay, and maybe I can ask these questions. Okay, do you have them, or do you want me to read them out?
Yeah, so to answer the first question, the question was, since sensing is in quotes, does it mean it's the sense beyond physical senses? And, you know, we often say gut feel or stomach feeling. So it's somehow related to our physical sense, but it's different from senses like pain or tickling or something like that. It's more like, a sense, and you may get goosebumps or whatever, right? That could be a side effect. But it's something that just kind of comes to you, right? And if we talk about level at 4th degree listening. The second question, when you started using intuition and trust intuition, how often you use intuition coaching sessions? Oh, I came across intuition. I mean, I started coaching in 2002. I was one of the first 10 coaches in Hong Kong then. And it was probably around 2010 that my colleague, I had a partner at the time, a French guy, who was co-running the business with me. And he was very tuned into these things, emotional intelligence, intuition, and all that. And so he started to bring that closer to me. And there was a little bit of a hesitation initially. But as I said, once you experience it, you start to see the difference, right? How often do I use it in coaching sessions? I would say intuitive listening almost every session in some shape or form. Doesn't mean it's a strong intuition like in the case that I had, but sometimes just try to sense what's really important here, or what do I need to dig into more. I mean, all of you will use intuition in some way, yeah, because how do you decide what's next? What's your next question? And of course, many times you will have a logical reason for the next question, but sometimes you may not have, right? And you just think, it feels right now to ask that. That could be an intuition. Then please share your experience when you used intuition and the clients didn't connect with it. Did you tell the client before you used intuition? That happened so far only when I used the third way with the tree. I had one coachee where I said, I want to do something experimental. And she asked, what is it? And she had actually some religious religious reservations. Yeah, she was a very strong, I guess, Catholic or something, and she felt this is somehow not okay with her religion. Okay, then I accept that and move on. I don't have to use it. Yeah. So that was the only case I can actually recall.
I think the audience also would like to, if you don't mind, slowly re-explain how this
Tree exercise.
tool works, right? The exercise works, because at the beginning, how do you get into that mindset and find the tree and so on, and what do you do with it?
Yeah, it was a bit fast. So the first question is, when do I use this, right? And I usually use it when my more traditional approaches seem to hit a wall. Where we seem to not get anywhere. Yeah. And then I think, okay, maybe we need to try something different. And then I would usually ask for the coachee. It, by the way, doesn't work very well if the coachee has a very poor visual sense. Yeah. If they are very word-driven and logic-driven, then that may be difficult. But as long as they can visualize things enough, that usually can work. And so I would tell my coachee, I will need about 30 seconds. You may need in the beginning maybe 1-2 minutes to do it. With practice, you get faster. And I would say, just give me 30 seconds and I will try to generate an intuition, and then let's talk about it. Yeah. And then in my mind, I walk along the beach. I imagine the weather, that's beautiful weather, not too hot, not too cold, nice breeze. And then I see a path going inside into the land. And then at one point, there's an open plain, and I see a tree in the middle of this open plain. And then I just try to see the tree. I'm not trying to construct it, I let it emerge in my mind. Yeah, that's very important. If you try to construct it, forget it. It's not intuition. You need to kind of let it emerge in whichever way it comes. And it could have some weird things about the tree that in reality don't exist. I had once someone who imagined a lion, but the lion had 2 horns. Yeah, and so on. So it doesn't even have to be something that exists in reality. You just take whatever emerges. And then you share that in a lot of detail to your coachee. Does the coachee, how does that make any sense to you at all? Because at first it seems very nonsensical, right? But actually there's usually some details in the tree or whatever you choose that suddenly resonate with the coachee, where they suddenly see something that they haven't seen before. Does that help?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that's very clear. Do you think, or can you tell us if your trees are very different from one time to another?
Oh yeah, totally.
Okay.
And you cannot, well, you can train your intuition in the sense that you pay more attention to it. But what you can train is the accuracy of your intuition. And how so? Is by exposing yourself more to that topic where you want to have better intuition. Yeah, so for example, if you want to get better at using intuition in investment, then do whatever you can to expose yourself with anything related to investment. Read books, talk to people, watch videos, whatever. Expose yourself a lot, and your intuition will get better and better and more reliable related to that topic. Because you create more and more of these fragments in your subconscious mind. And the more quality fragments you have, the more likely your intuition is going to be right.
So does that mean that obviously, you know, most of the people oops. Sorry. Most of the people that are here tonight, they're interested in the, you know, either coaches or interested in coaching. What you just said about you know, train the field that's of your interest, you know, I suppose that applies to coaching as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can we do is it possible to do then a parallel and say that, you know, what we say in general about coaching, because everyone that comes out of a coaching education and has virtually no experience, I suppose I don't say any big mistake if I say that everyone's a bit afraid of not being able to coach properly, right? And we're thinking we're kind of a fraud from at the start when we have just a few hours and
Imposter syndrome.
We don't exactly. So is it possible to do a parallel with learning to trust your intuition?
Yes. I want to quickly share something that one of our participants many years ago said in Shanghai. She said, when I'm coaching, she was a new coach, just learned coaching. She said, when I'm coaching, I feel like I'm tapping in a dark room for the light switch. And I really loved that metaphor. And my answer was, well, at that time, I guess it was 14 years a coach or something like that. Is that, you know, even after 14 years, I'm still in a dark room and I'm still tapping. I just got a lot better at tapping and have a better sense where I need to tap. So there you go.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing. Okay. Do we have any? Yes, the last question maybe. Mindfulness is a way of intuition generating or not?
Oh, mindfulness is such a broad topic. And I'm pretty certain that if you practice mindfulness a lot, to pay more attention to your intuition will be easier. I would imagine that. Yeah. Is it a direct way to get intuition? Probably not. But we all have intuition. The question is, do we pay attention to it?
Right.
And maybe it's easy to pay attention.
Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah, mindfulness helps to gain awareness and focus, right?
Yes, correct.
And then we have way more questions.
Yeah, what are the key signs that our intuition is trying to communicate with us?
Yes, the last one. Yeah.
Last question. Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, as I said, the way you know that it's an intuition is whenever something comes to you and you cannot immediately explain it, right? Then you know that's probably an intuition. And what I found, even when it seems irrelevant to the coaching, I still find it useful to bring it in, because think about the damage. What is the potential damage? The potential damage is 2-3 minutes waste of time. Of course, you shouldn't bring in 10 times an intuition in a session and every time it's nothing, right? But that usually doesn't happen. You bring that maybe once or twice in a session. And if it doesn't land with the coach, it's not a problem. Yeah. But more often than not, I found it was really having a big impact. And so I rather trade that for a potential failure of 2-3 minutes waste of time, with the chance to actually make something really impressive for the coachee.
Can I just dare a kind of a small proposal, which is, can we say that it would be a good idea to not trust our intuition if we don't have that experience. Just be curious about it and give it a chance.
Sure. I mean, again, if the stakes are low, then you definitely can do that. To give an opposite example, if you want to invest $1 million in a villa, have very little exposure, and you're not the expert of selecting villas, and well, my gut feeling says that's the right villa for me, I wouldn't do that.
Right. Okay, Charlie, thank you so much. Can I maybe try to, impossible obviously to summarize all of this sharing and knowledge, but just maybe a few words that at least stuck to my mind. I think what you've repeated several times, and I think also was a good way of illustrating intuition, is what we cannot immediately explain. So I like that. I also learned about memory, and that's of course a bit personal. As I said, I keep forgetting things all the time. So now that I know it's all fragmented, maybe it makes more sense. And then going from there to also think about all the indirect impact that things around us have on ourselves without us realizing it. Sorry, like the train you talked about, that that can create very down to earth health risks.
Yeah.
And about the level of exposure, I think that's also one of your key messages, is that your intuition is not likely to be very reliable if you have very low exposure to whatever you're trying to decide or address.
Mm.
And then try to also what I heard, we haven't talked much about it afterwards, but I felt that you communicated a risk of confusion between emotion and intuition, and that this is important to clarify with ourselves by asking ourselves, what am I feeling right now?
Right.
So that was also a good learning, I think. And then, of course, all the different levels of listening that I think were absolutely clear, and that there is just a level in our coaching journey where we're just we're trusting, well, not only the intuition, I guess, but that the experience and the present moment kind of melt together, right, in a kind of a wholeness.
Yeah.
That's at least my way of summarizing my impression tonight.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, thank you. Coach Lian, do you want to have the final word?
Such a compelling session, really. It's really opening up many possibility in way coaching. And now I might have to start to rethinking of how I coach and then all the intuition and like Charlie said, that the more knowledge that we have, because really you never know what's gonna hit. I mean, it's not hurt to suggest, probably gonna waste like a couple of minutes, but the more knowledge that you have, and if you just pick one and then you find the one that's really hit with our coachee, then it's like it's better than a jackpot, and you never know what's gonna be there. So really keep opening, but then have to be detached. Also, like you said, and don't forget the goal of the session. Don't get too carried away with all the intuitions and everything. But but that's really helped. Really, a lot of stuff for me now to really go back and really, think and reflect and working on. It's a powerful session. Thank you so much, Charlie. And I think everyone is feeling the same thing too. So yes, well, we have come to the closing of our final episode of the Mastery Journey to MCC 2025. So I would like to invite all of you to take a moment to reflect on the incredible depth of learning and inspiration we've gained throughout this series. Over the course of this journey, we have had a rare opportunity to dive deep into the essence of masterful coaching, guided by 4 exceptional ICF Master Certified coaches who have generously shared their time, wisdom, and profound insight with us. Their dedication of coaching excellence has illuminated the pathway for us all. So once again, thank you very much to our honorable guest, Charlie. Thank you for your valuable contribution and for sharing the power flow of coaching with intuition. It's really elevate our coaching practice. And to all of our esteemed MCC guest speakers throughout this series, your generosity is to sharing your expertise were truly inspiring. And a heartfelt thank you to Coach Arne, our moderator, for leading today's section so expertly. And also to each and every one of you, our live audience, and also those who will turn up later for the rerun. thank you for your engagement and dedication to your own growth as a professional coach. And of course, thank you for all our coaches, our committee, our team of ICF Bangkok chapter for all of your dedication in making this happening. And at ICF Bangkok chapter, we hope this series has not only deepened your understanding of MCC level coaching, but has also sparked new inspiration for your journey ahead. And if you missed this session, you can watch the replay on YouTube until March of 15, 2025. So don't miss this opportunity to revisit the valuable insights shared throughout this series. Well, thank you very much once again. And just small reminding for all of you, our ICF member, that you are eligible to receive one resource development or one CCEU unit for attending this session. So don't forget to go claim your CCEU. We provided the link for registration below in the comments, so don't forget to check this out. Whether you're joining us on live or you will watch it later on the replays, you can also earn this CCEU unit. So don't forget to go register. And while today's mark the conclusion of Mastery Journey to MCC 2005, but our journey of learning and growth will never truly end. Well, ICF Bangkok is committed to providing you with enriched opportunities throughout this year, including both online and in-person events on site, designed to support your coaching developments. So please stay connected with us by following the ICF Bangkok chapter Facebook page to stay updated for all the upcoming events. We're looking forward to see you again soon at ICF Bangkok. Thank you once again for being part of this incredible journey. Wishing you all continued success and mastery in your coaching path. Thank you so much. See you again next time. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.